You're watching highlights of the Stow City Council meeting on July 8, 2026. Follow your local governments at cgov.org.
One resident stepped up to push back on fears about mixed-use development and to call out what they saw as missed opportunities in the zoning changes. Let's hear how they framed the trade-offs around affordability and density.
Noel Sharif, 5462 Young Road. I promise to tell the truth. Once again, I just want to reiterate, I am in favor of these amendments as they are. I don't see how mixed use is going to destroy the city. I don't see how it's going to cause problems. The studies show that, it doesn't bring crime. It doesn't bring burden on the school district. It doesn't bring a lot of the things that we are worried about. Finish off, once again, I want to say I think it was a big missed opportunity to remove the provisions for affordability, which city council could negotiate that when approving contracts with these contractors. And I think it's another missed opportunity to keep the density cap so low. Thank you.
Another resident pushed back hard on the idea that a few new apartments would magically create a vibrant downtown. Hear how they questioned the council's approach and warned about what they believe this plan would mean for longtime homeowners.
Brian Loudermilk, 2536 Myra Road. But going back, in many of these places around us that have done these walkable and these rejuvenate took significant private and public investment, and they worked together before it was done. The city of Kent, I believe, was $1 billion total in redevelopment, tearing down what was there. And that's how you start to do things like that. You don't simply add apartment buildings and say, oh, we got a downtown now, and that this is going to drive all this commerce, because it doesn't happen. So your job is to do what's right for the residents in the city. That is not what's right for the 30-some thousand residents It might be right for 5 or 10 that you happen to know or be friends with on Facebook, but it is not what 30-some thousand residents in our city want, who have bought houses, paid their property, made their property values what they are. So this has no other choice but the end effect will be to devalue a lot of other properties. This is just the wrong way to go. You got it right back. The old council, when they voted it down, it needs to be voted down again. Thank you.
One resident came prepared with studies and a clear message for council about fears over property values and big apartment buildings. Hear how they challenged those assumptions and put the council's role in shaping the city's character into perspective.
Christian Lasser, 1760 Gorge Park Boulevard. First of all, it's empirically proven it's not going to decrease property values. There's a study from the HHS that proves that definitively. To say that that's the case just simply isn't true. I hope you all won't vote based on that concern when it's empirically proven that that isn't the case. The idea that we're just going to be putting in large apartments wherever also fundamentally isn't true, because all of those developments still go through the council. So while I understand that some public has concerns that it's going to diminish the character of our city, this amendment alone isn't going to create that environment. It would take continued effort from you all to diminish the character of our city. And I know that
a longtime resident stepped up with a sharp reminder of past council votes and a stark warning about what more multifamily housing would mean for the city. Listen to how they linked concerns about crime and neighborhood change to the current zoning debate.
Baumgartner, 3078 Snowshoe Circle. Several months ago, 5 of the council members voted against unlimited multifamily dwelling housing. 1 voted for it. Back when Miller's Landing was going on, 2 councilmen on this up front now voted against it. So how could you even think about voting for unlimited family dwellings in Stow, Ohio? All this AI stuff generated tells you that low-income housing doesn't generate crime is crazy. Obviously, they haven't taken a walk through Silver Meadows. I'm there every day, all right? I know what goes on in Silver Meadows. We have it in Locust Apartments in Cauga Falls. Echo Valley. Do we want more of that in this town? I don't think so. Take a walk through Silver Meadows sometime. See what really goes on in tough neighborhoods.
Another resident turned from statistics to what they called common sense, painting a vivid picture of what they feared higher density would mean right behind people's homes. Listen to how they describe the risks they believe the zoning changes left on the table.
Cassandra Stiefel, 4599A Cox Drive. I completely would like to agree with the gentleman before me. A lot of statistics out there in the world, but I find that most people my age, I'm in my mid-40s, have lived enough to know common sense above all else. No one wants to be here then, when they're going to be crying and unable to sell their house because no one else wants that in their backyard. No one else wants a big old parking lot behind them. No one else wants their kids to have to ride their bike but be scared someone's going to wander in from that parking lot and take their little boy or their little girl. These are the things we are leaving open by changing density and by changing building areas. But that one little loophole, we're supposedly fixing all of our ordinances because we don't want, but in certain areas, there to be mixed family. Well, why aren't we truly fixing it so that it can't happen to any of our residents? We are not truly fixing anything. We are just shortening and making smaller that loophole where they can come in and build that apartment complex in someone else's backyard. Or where we back up our church trailer and have little campouts at our church at first.
After a wave of emotional testimony, one resident came back to the mic with a different approach: legal language and market economics. Hear how they tried to clear up confusion about zoning loopholes and even pushed back on accusations of AI-generated research.
Andrew Branch, 3764 Elm Road. Any loophole that apparently does exist in the code, this isn't changing it. We're actually making it more restrictive because we're clarifying for specifically the type of multifamily that's listed as multifamily complex to only be built on main roads. Currently, that provision is not in there. So technically, from a legal standpoint, they can actually be built anywhere. We're restricting it with this change in the wording. Any legal loophole that exists, this isn't changing it. We're just changing the density to be the average to make it more efficient. So regardless if it's 6 or 10 or whatever, it's still getting built on that land regardless. And what happens is when you lessen the density, it spreads out the demand. So then you actually get more properties bought up in order to accommodate for this demand. It's basic market economics. Second, my sources are not AI generated. I have them right here. I have the DOI. I have the link. I have the specific date in which each of them are published. I don't use AI, for researching, but the point I want to make is, these are all real sources that are going to become part of the public record. I'm making sure that they're actually coming from sources and not, just being spit out by AI. So I just want to, clarify for the public record, these sources I've cited, they are true, and please pass these amendments.
Before council wrapped up, the mayor took a moment to connect national history, local public safety, and a community clothing drive. Stay tuned to hear how they highlighted what had recently brought residents together in Stow.
Tying in with that, last evening, we had the reading of the Declaration of Independence at 6 o'clock here on City Hall grounds. It was really a moving experience. This was nationwide, and it was read clear across the United States in many different cities. Thank you, Chief Perusha, and all your officers on the phenomenal way that you handled things that were going on in our city on Tuesday, and the collaboration with our other cities and county. So I really appreciate that, and again, please pass that word on because it is very much appreciated. It shows what our Stow Police Department really is in our safety forces. We have our clothing drive that is going on. This will end up going to our school-age children that need help. And that will be in August. And the outpouring of support from our community has just been phenomenal. Like I said, anytime there's an ask out there, and so I know many kids will be able to start with some new clothing that is much needed and be proud of going to school.
Right at the end of the meeting, council briefly turned to a different kind of summer issue: backyard pools and fence rules. Watch how they handled a proposed pool amendment and decided what should happen with it next.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to move the pool amendment. I don't have the piece about grandfathering in with fences, which was discussed during roads and safety, to move to the planning commission. Is that correct, Mr. Riley?
Yes, so we have a motion to move the pool item to the planning commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call a roll? That item will be moved to the planning commission. Now will the clerk please read item A by its title? Thank you.
Before council could move ahead on hiring new school resource officers, they had to tackle one more step: the security contract with the local school district. See how they introduced this emergency measure and set up the vote that would follow.
Oh, just how we need to approve the SRO contract before we approve the hiring of the officers. Yes, thank you.
2026-120, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make an enter into a security service contract with the Stow Monroe Falls City School District and declare an emergency.
Council moved quickly to lock in a new school resource officer for the coming year. Watch how they handled the emergency ordinance confirming the appointment and pushed it through to final passage.
An ordinance confirming the chief of police appointment of Kayla Zalay as school resource officer for the police department of the city of Stow, establishing compensation for appointee and declaring emergency.
All in favor?
Yes.
The rules are suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Coffee?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Aranek?
Yes.
Fioka?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Real?
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect in accordance with the rules.
After council approved the new school resource officers, one member wanted to make sure the police chief's work didn't go unrecognized. Listen to how they put that appreciation on the record.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, just want to publicly get on the record that Chief, great job getting these two highly qualified school resource officers, and how you shifted from getting some qualified people who fit this position. So congrats to you on that. Thank you.
Council closed out the public safety discussion with a brief but important nod to the city's police leadership transition. Listen for the congratulations and the note about when this change was set to officially take effect.
Congratulations, Chief Lang.
Thank you.
That ordinance passes and will take effect in accordance with the rules. After Chief Stone retires.
Council turned to a key hire for Stow's future growth, a new director of planning and development. Hear how the appointment was introduced and how the planners stepped up to share their experience and enthusiasm for the role.
An ordinance confirming the mayor's appointment of Pete Wersler as Director of Planning and Development for the Department of Development of the City of Stow, establishing compensation for said appointee and declare an emergency.
No, I appreciate everyone. My name is Pete Wersler. Really excited for the opportunity to work for the city. I've got 10 years of experience as a city and regional planner, master's from Clemson University, but this is incredibly exciting. So thank you for the opportunity.
After all the public testimony, council finally turned back to the tabled zoning amendments for a crucial third reading. Watch how they brought the multifamily housing ordinance back into play and set up the decision that followed.
We'll now move to our disposition of ordinances and resolutions, beginning with our two tabled items, which were the zoning amendments that we had the public hearing for. So do we have a motion to remove 2026-095 from the table for its third reading?
2026-095, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 1104 of the Codified Ordinance of Stow entitled Use Standards, particularly Section 1104.04A6 entitled Dwelling Multiple multifamily including 15 to 12 units, 13 plus units, and multifamily complexes.
As council weighed how dense future housing should be, Councilmember Coffey dug into the numbers and sketched out a very different vision for downtown development. Listen to how Coffey explained their opposition to this version of the plan and where they were still willing to compromise.
So I think this similarly, House of Levine recommending unlimited density, we as a council, should decide what's best. I think we need to be looking toward the future, preserving the limited green space that we have. So I'm a no on this, even version 3, for several reasons, but I'm still willing to go back to the drawing board and create the right version. But then if we're looking at a downtown, so the only reason to increase the density from 6 to 10 would be to put in apartment buildings. If you look at the list that Zach gave us in his presentation a few months ago, townhomes are 6 units per acre, apartments are 10 units per acre. Hidden Lake Apartments is 9.88 units per acre. So the only reason to increase the density from 6 to 10 would be to add apartments on the main roads. I think we're talking about Testa and Talmadge, those where they put in mixed use and they put apartments or condos over businesses, Crocker Park, Pinecrest, all those places, but they're not 1-bedroom studio apartments, 500 square feet. They're nice apartments, nice condos. So I think if we want to do unlimited, I think we need to increase the square footage for that downtown area, and I'm okay with compromising on that.
One council member pushed back on fears of instant transformation and zeroed in on what affordable housing really meant in this debate. Listen to how they defended the long negotiation behind version 3 and questioned whether a past vote truly settled the issue.
This is not something that's going to happen overnight. This is just putting the code in place so that it can gradually happen as things develop. It's not going to magically appear, as it was mentioned. And it was well thought out. And that's why we're on version 3. It was well thought out over 2 years, lots of people's input, lots of public input. And we are on version 3 because we are negotiating. And also when we get to the other one, taking out the affordability piece, I think is a mistake because it does not equate to low income. Affordability is an issue for everybody, whether it's a young graduate out of college, whether it's a senior. It's affordability. It's not low income. They were done at that meeting, discussed briefly. I think people were confused. Therefore, they voted for it. And there was no public comment other than the few people that showed up opposed to it. So I don't think that saying that that's the right version because people voted for it then. So I'm in favor for it after all.
One speaker pulled out years of public survey data to challenge fears about mixed use and unlimited density. Listen to how they connected calls for a true downtown to concerns about shrinking population and the city's tax base.
And we had nearly 400 people participate in the survey that we had. 51% said they wanted more mixed use. Only 21% said they didn't, and the rest were undecided. And the surveys that we've seen from 2010, 2017, and then this process that we went through, everyone wants a downtown. The only argument about was where it should be. People in 2010, 70% said they wanted mixed use to be allowed in the Stow-Kent area. We can't fearmonger about unlimited density for low income housing when that's not what this is about. We have already amended this to ensure that there are caps in place, and there are other ways of making sure that this is controlled and planned, because it's not healthy to suppress our housing supply throughout the entire city. Our population base has declined for nearly 20 years now. We peaked around 35,000 around 2010. We actually decreased to around 34,000 by the 2020 census, and current estimates have us below 34,000. And that's not fiscally responsible. When you suppress our housing supply, you suppress our economic development, you suppress our tax base, and then we all have to pay more to upkeep the same infrastructure. And that's hurting our local businesses.
As council tried to land on the right zoning version, Members dug into what unlimited density really meant and how much affordability language should stay in the code. Listen to how Coffey and Feldman compared versions 2 and 3 and framed what they saw as a reasonable compromise.
No, I was just asking which version we were discussing, and I was just saying my issues with version 3. The only difference in version 3 is instead of commercial, it says above ground floor only, correct, for referring to multi-use. So version 2, they're nearly identical. It's just it's 10 units per acre on all the main roads and the bus fares, and then unlimited density in commercial, which
So
is
version
essentially the same
2
thing.
caps at 10, and our average now is 9.54. It caps it at 10, right? I keep hearing unlimited. Then it's targeted according to the comprehensive plan. To me, that's a reasonable limit if I'm looking at the comprehensive plan, right? And it's also responsible for mixed use in some commercial areas. So we targeted the comprehensive plan. I got some messages that said, locations, you got to do something with locations. We did. I got some messages on affordability. We eliminated it. It's not even we subtracted the affordability piece. So we met some more. I think the zoning policy, as we know from the rewrite, needs to evolve, right? It can't stay where it is. We know we were way behind on a zoning code rewrite. So I think we use some common sense to get where we are.
One speaker pushed back on what they called fear-based arguments and put a different vision of city planning on the table. Listen to how they linked today's zoning decision to missed chances for a downtown decades ago.
I understand the concerns that have been raised, but I think we need to be honest with the public that there's fear mongering going on about this idea of unlimited low income apartments that we've already addressed by making changes to the amendments and that have already been addressed through other means in the code that prevent that from happening. We have strengthened the city's ability to conditionally approve on a case-by-case basis so that we don't end up in a Miller's Landing scenario. We're already suppressing our housing supply significantly. This amendment would just allow for the possibility for more efficient housing to be approved. And the idea that we need to have the vision of like what a downtown is going to be and then use eminent domain and make all these investments, that's not how city planning works. This code change just allows for the possibility for these things to be approved, for these things to be proposed, so that then they can be approved. We're just saying, hey, if we have something good that could be proposed, can council at least consider approving it instead of just denying these opportunities, not only for us, but for future generations? Because we could have had a downtown by now if the code had allowed it 35 years ago, when it was put into the comprehensive plan.
As council closed in on a decision, Council Member Coffey laid out why this version of the zoning plan felt like a much bigger shift than residents realized. Listen to how Coffey broke down the numbers and described what happened when one supporter heard the details.
But that's not what this is. It's so much more. I mean, it's changing all the main roads. It's increasing them from 6 to 10. So from not allowing any more apartments, we have 30% to allowing them with 10 units per acre. I mean, it really is changing the city significantly. And then with the mixed use, I would be all for a downtown, but I don't think it should be unlimited at 500 square feet. And I mean, honestly, one person that was for this today, that contacted me, the one person that contacted me that was for it, I spoke with and I said, here are my concerns. And they said, oh, I 100% agree with you. It needs to be greater than 500 square feet with unlimited density and mixed use. I mean, when people get the facts, then I think they disagree with this legislation. I don't agree with it.
As the debate over unlimited density came to a head, one speaker directly challenged the way the issue was being framed. Listen to how they sparred with Council Member Coffey over putting a number on development and argued for a different kind of zoning altogether.
It's not unlimited. We need to stick to the facts instead of misleading people and fear-mongering to them. We have height requirements. We have footprint requirements that prevent it from being unlimited.
Then why don't we put a number on it?
Because a number is arbitrary and redundant when we already have these other limitations. We moved to a more form-based code than a use-based code.
As debates stretched on, Council Member Reel stepped in to spell out the rules for cutting it off. Listen to how they broke down what it really meant to call the question, and who had to agree before discussion could end.
How it works is you call the question to close debate. Then a supermajority of council has to agree to end debate on the question. And it's also not debatable. So it's, if the supermajority is not in favor of closing debate.
After a long back and forth, council had to decide whether to finally cut off debate and move to a vote. Watch this roll call to see who agreed it was time to call the question.
Coffee?
And this is just for call to question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Bareneck?
Yes.
Fioka?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Reel?
Yes.
Right after council voted to cut off debate, things briefly got tangled over what motion was actually on the floor. Listen in as council member Reel and others sorted through the rules and worked out what needed to happen next.
No, there's no suspension of the rules because it's already the third. I'm thinking of the motion to adopt, which was supposed to be done.
Motion to adopt.
Yeah. That needs to come first next time. So like after it's read. So. Correct.
Reel?
No.
That motion would have needed 5 out of the 7, so the motion does not carry.
With the first zoning proposal stalled, council turned to a different ordinance that had been sitting on the table. Watch how they brought this overlay district measure back to life and set it up for a possible vote.
Make a motion to move ordinance 2026-096 off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
96 has been removed from the table.
2026-096, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 1103 of the Codified Ordinance of Stow entitled Overlay District Standards, particularly Section 1103.04 entitled Minor Plan Development Overlay District Standards.
Motion to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
When council turned to the city's overlay district rules, council member Coffey raised big questions about whether one section should exist at all. Listen to how they walked through the approval process and laid out why they planned to vote no.
But to give an example, a developer could, and I asked Mr. Cowan this when he was here, a developer could propose, a higher than 3-story building, which is our maximum. Again, they could also do that with a variance, which is another reason I don't think we need a minor plan development section at all. But so these modification standards were removed, and our law directors have said there's legal ramifications. I think we should, I'm going to vote no, and I think the recommendation would be to go to Planning Commission and remove the whole section. I don't think it's needed at this point in Stow's development. So those are my thoughts on that.
As council drilled into the fine print of minor plan developments, the conversation turned to legal risks and how much leverage council should really have with developers. Listen to this back and forth over negotiation tools, variances, and whether a whole section of the zoning code should even stay on the books.
We already have minor plan developments allowed in the code. What was removed and now needs to put back in was the tools that council has to negotiate with when they are going through the process. So if we don't have those tools in there, it opens us to legal liabilities because we don't have justification for denying them. This shooting down this amendment isn't going to remove our ability to have minor plan development. It just removes council's ability to help guide what they're going to look like. And we already removed council's ability to negotiate for affordable units because of all the fear mongering about affordability.
I don't think we need a minor plan development section. I don't like the other as the last modification standard, which just says the applicant may propose an other objective for consideration, which shall be aligned with the City of Stow comprehensive plan as determined by council. I don't like the subjectivity of that. I just don't think we're at a point where we need to allow a developer to circumvent the zoning code. Stow is mostly developed. I think they should follow the code or apply for a variance.
That's what this does. It's that if they apply for a variance, then council can negotiate based on standards. Right now, they can apply for a variance and then sue the city because we don't have standards in place.
Correct. But if we remove this whole section, there would be no possible, I mean, they wouldn't have anything to sue about.
As the zoning debate drilled down into legal fine print, a speaker stepped in to untangle the risks and the math behind minor plan developments. Listen to how they clarified when council could be exposed to lawsuits and how many votes it really took to overrule Planning Commission.
So first, yes, what Councilwoman Coffey is saying is currently because we don't have the standards, that's the legal liability. If we remove any mention of it from the code, then you don't have that same legal ramification because you don't have an instance where someone could apply for it, but then no standards exist for it. So there's no there's more subjectivity and open for interpretation of what standards were used. So Councilwoman Coffey is correct. I'll say that 3 times fast. That if this does not pass, the law department would recommend looking at that whole section or developing other standards for it, because that's the legal ramification, is not having these guidelines but still having it as a part of the code. So when you take those 2 sections in tandem, if the Planning Commission recommends something, it doesn't take a supermajority of council to reject it. It just takes a simple majority to reject it. So it wouldn't take 5 votes of people voting against a Planning Commission recommendation to vote it down, because it still needs 4 votes to take effect. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
It only applies in the instance if Planning Commission rejects something or you guys make amendments to something. That's the only time the 5-2 calculus takes effect.
As council weighed what to do with Ordinance 96, one member asked the blunt question on everyone's mind. Were they risking a lawsuit if it failed? Listen in as that concern about legal liability got a clear and sobering answer.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Hooten, I think it was you when I was reading the minutes this past week on this issue, and it's a simple question. You or Mr. Riley, if 96 doesn't pass, we're opening up ourselves to legal liability.
We opened ourselves up to legal liability in December with this. So yes, if this doesn't pass, we are still in legal liability. That's why there's this conversation that's just happened about potentially putting forward to remove the whole section.
The legal stakes around Stow's zoning code came into sharp focus when Councilmember Coffey pressed on why missing standards could trigger lawsuits. Listen to how the law department broke down what arbitrary and capricious might mean for future development decisions.
So my question is, I guess, why would we be open to legal liabilities? Because these are just the standards these are the things that they would give back to us. So like, accessible design, but their criteria for minor plan development wouldn't change. They just wouldn't be required to give us anything back. So why would they sue us for that?
If they applied for a minor planned development overlay district and council rejected it, they could sue because there are no standards of basing the rejection on. So they would say, in legal parlance, they'd say the council's decision was arbitrary and capricious. That's why having these standards, it says, look, you didn't come to us and propose you came in and changed the minor plan development overlay district, and you differed from the code in this way because you had the accessibility requirements or the other that meets with the comprehensive plan. If you reject it because you're like, I don't like it, there's no standard that you're basing it on that. it's a due process issue.
After all the legal warnings, council had to decide how to move forward without boxing themselves in. Listen to how a path through Planning Commission helped one member shift from hesitation to supporting the ordinance, at least for now.
Similar to how Mr. Feldman referred items to Planning Commission, yes, that's how a simple majority of council descended to Planning Commission for stuff.
Okay, then in that case, I will approve this so that we aren't in any legal, and then we can discuss further, and going back to Planning Commission, council can discuss and vote on keeping this together and removing the section and get everyone's thoughts, unless anyone else has thoughts now. Thank you for your help with that, Drew.
Once council wrapped up the zoning and legal debate, they shifted to a different kind of decision: future pay for the city's top officials. Listen in as the clerk introduced the ordinance that would set compensation for Stow's mayor and key directors starting in 2028.
That ordinance passes and will take effect in accordance with the rules.
2026-100, an ordinance establishing the compensation for the mayor, law director, and finance director of the city of Stow effective January 2nd, 2028.
Before council could vote on future pay for Stow's top officials, a speaker flagged a quiet but important change to the ordinance. Hear how this revised version tried to address concerns about cost of living raises outpacing what police officers earn.
I just wanted to let council know that a version 2 was prepared and submitted with this. This just takes into account some of the comments that Councilman Reel and Councilman Fiocca made at the last meeting. I believe it was the June meeting that you made about this. The version 2 takes out the whole CPI and only makes the raises as an average of the collective bargaining agreements, so that you don't have that issue where the COLA could be higher than what the police officer is making. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear and that you guys had seen that before any votes were taken. So just try to take the comments into it.
As council weighed future pay for the city's top officials, Councilmember Coffey took the conversation in a different direction, straight to voters and term limits. Listen to how Coffey questioned percentage raises, floated a ballot alternative, and opened the door to rethinking which positions should be elected at all.
So, I mean, I'm against this. I would be in favor of sending an increase of from 80 to 100 to the ballot. I just think for elected officials, I like this verbiage of any increase going to the voters. And so I don't like percentage increases for elected officials, but I think there are several benefits. They'll be termed out after that. And I think it increases the pool to which you can draw from, because you're not limited to only our municipality. A lot of cities do that. You don't have the issue with being elected and their pay having to go to the voters, which I am a fan of if they're elected, but if they're appointed, I think that it's different. I think it puts onus on the mayor, for appointing the right people to these. And then I think it also helps with, term limits. You know, I'm a fan of term limits, but with these highly specialized positions, I think that if they do a good job, they would likely retain their position through different mayors, and they wouldn't have the subjectivity of and the definitive term limits that you would have with being elected. So I think that's a second discussion point that council should have, and I would appreciate thoughts on that.
As council weighed pay raises for Stow's top officials, the debate shifted to a bigger question: should these roles stay elected or become appointed? Listen to how members balanced voter control, long-delayed salary increases, and what exactly this ballot measure would and wouldn't do.
So, does making it appointed any better? It could. It does broaden your pool, because now you're not looking for attorneys or financial people to live in your city. So I think that should be a discussion down the road to do that. I'm in favor of increasing their salaries, because all these positions, the mayor, the law director, and the finance director, I'm just going to take a wild guess, probably haven't been changed for the last 12 years. And I don't think that the people that held those positions lived in a bubble and got to pay, for the same things that everybody else got paid for that pay for your, to sustain your life.
So, the electorate did make those positions elected positions. It was then, I believe, a charter review or something a number of years later, then took it to the voters and said, do we want to make these appointed again? And it was like overwhelming, probably 75-25 no. Like, voters are not going to take away their right and opportunity to elect who served them, right? So, and I know in subsequent charter reviews, they also proposed, I believe making them appointed, or at least was floated, and it was like batted down. I will clarify tonight that this piece of legislation is only to put it on the ballot to ask the voters. By voting yes or voting no, you are not either endorsing the issue or voting no. That will be up to the campaigns and the individuals who want to go out and make the case that these positions need a higher pay. So again, just as clarification, we're not voting to endorse this. We are voting to ask the voters if they would like to raise these salaries. Second, or third.
I just want to add, for the record, I am in favor of getting it on the ballot and letting the voters decide. My only concern is it requires the percent increase, and it looks like a big percent increase because it has been 15 years. So it's, that's unfortunate because they have not had a raise in all this time.
Again, I'm not arguing that they deserve it. I just don't like the mechanism being changed in the charter.
After all the debate over how to handle raises for top city officials, council still had to nail down one last detail: which version of the ordinance to actually vote on. Watch this pair of roll calls to see how the amendment and the final decision played out.
Any discussion on amending to version 2? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
This is just amending to version 2, not voting on it.
Correct.
Coffee?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Baranek?
Yes.
Bioka?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Spellman?
Abstain.
Rio?
Yes.
That amendment passes.
Okay. Coffee? Young?
Yes.
Baranek?
Yes.
Bioka?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Spellman?
Abstain.
Rio?
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect in accordance with the rules.
Council turned to a quiet but important question: who should become acting mayor when there's a vacancy at the top? Listen to how they weighed a charter change meant to prevent competing claims to the mayor's seat, and why at least one member preferred the old language.
2026-102, an ordinance providing for a separate amendment to the charter of the city of Stow, Ohio, to be submitted to the electorate at the general election on November 3rd, 2026, to amend section 3.06 to clarify the procedure of acting mayor and declaring emergency.
My vote is just the same as we voted on this exact same thing last year, and I just have concerns if the president didn't want it. I feel like it's better to go to not to be forced to go to the president, but a majority vote of council. So I like the current verbiage better.
Yeah, so the current verbiage has in the charter has what I view as a glaring situation where you could have two competing situations where the president of council steps in as acting mayor, and then council takes a vote to appoint a separate acting mayor. There is no mechanism right now of who becomes acting mayor. That's why the language clarifies that automatically.
Rio?
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect in accordance with the rules.
Council turned from who should be acting mayor to another key what if question: who steps in when the finance director or law director suddenly can't serve. Listen to how they debated this charter change, right down to the job titles, before deciding what should go to voters.
An ordinance providing a separate amendment to the charter of the city of Stow, Ohio, to be submitted to the electorate at general election on November 3rd, 2026, to add section 6.08 of the charter, creating a provision for acting finance director and declaring an emergency.
Again, I think this is a good change. I don't like that it says assistant director when we don't have one. I think it should say deputy director. So for that reason, I'm a no.
We had a situation in which the finance director wasn't able to serve because of a health issue, but we didn't have an acting finance director. There are certain things legally that finance directors have to sign for and or do. And this, I'll echo this, this is also for a law director, that not just having signatory authority has the same weight as an acting finance director. So that is why Charter Review said that we need something like this for both finance and law. Because if you go and put it as the number 3 in the office, as written in the statute, and then a year from now you make a number 2 position or whatever, you have to go back and change the charter. So I think the charter should reflect the way that the office is set up, even if there is a vacancy in that position.
To round out the who steps in discussion, Council took up one last charter change, this time for the city's top legal post. Watch how the acting law director provision was introduced and moved through to passage in just a few lines.
2026-104, an ordinance providing a separate amendment to the charter of the city of Stow to be submitted by the electorate at the general election on November 3rd, 2026, to add section 9.07 of the charter, creating a provision for an acting law director and declaring an emergency.
That ordinance passes and will take effect in accordance with the rules.
Near the end of the meeting, Council took up a quiet but telling question. Should the city's public information officer become a full-time role? Watch this quick roll call to see how members split on the change and what ultimately happened to the ordinance.
2026-117, an ordinance amending number 2026-079, changing the public information officer from permanent part-time to a full-time position and declaring an emergency. Are you ready? Coffee?
No.
Young?
Yes.
Baranek?
No.
Fioka?
No.
Herman?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Rio?
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect in accordance with the rules. Will the clerk please read item G by its title?
Before Council wrapped up, they turned to a big catch-all zoning measure that tweaked everything from parking rules to how certain industrial uses are defined. Listen to how this wide-ranging planning code update was introduced and set up for debate.
2026-118, an ordinance amending certain sections, Part 11, Planning and Zoning Code of the Codified Ordinance of Stow, including Chapter 1104 entitled Use Standards, specifically Section 1103 entitled Principal Use Table, and Section 1104 entitled Automatic Industrial Uses, Chapter 1109 Access and Mobility Standards, specifically Section 1109.05 entitled Vehicle Parking, and Chapter 1114 entitled Definitions, specifically Standard 1114.07 entitled Definitions.
Council closed out the night with a small but tasty-sounding decision about a new restaurant in a familiar local building. Listen in as they granted a key zoning approval and shared what they were looking forward to seeing there.
2026-119, a resolution granting conditional zoning certificate to Nader Fahmy, applicant, on behalf of Gross Cup, owner of the property located at 3983 Darrow Road, parcel number 5605985.
Looking forward to a new restaurant at Parasons.
Yes.
Great example of filming on a vacant building.
Real.
Yes.
That resolution passes and will take effect in accordance with the rules.
To wrap up the night's business, Council had one last housekeeping step, deciding who would sign off on the city's bills. Listen in as they settled the question of the council president's role and moved on to final announcements.
I make a motion to approve the president of council as or designee sign the bill listing for July 23rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
The president or his designee will sign the subsequent bill listing. Next, scheduling of standing committee meetings or any other announcements for the good of the cause.
That's a wrap from the council, from the long, emotional debate over mixed-use zoning and legal fine print to new school resource officers, leadership appointments, charter tweaks, and even a new restaurant on Darrow Road. Zoning and pool rules are headed back through Planning Commission, and more charter and pay questions will be on future agendas. So keep an eye out for upcoming highlight reels to see what happens next.
Thank you for watching CGov.